Well, hello, everyone. I'm Jill Bloom, publisher of Roofing Contractor, Walls and Ceilings, and Building Enclosure. And thank you so much for watching or listening. And I'm so honored to be here today with Ryan Groth, the CEO of the Sales Transformation Group, who has been a presenter at Best of Success for several years now, and also a contributor of Roofing Contractor. Ryan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Jill. Glad to be here.
So when we were at Best of Success just a few weeks ago, hard to believe it was back in September, we're almost in November now. One of the things that you were talking about was the three levers of building of sales, right? And so there was so much great information that you were sharing, and I wanted to take a moment and kind of break it down a little bit more. So that being said, let's just focus on one piece of it. Can you take it from there?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I have my slides and I can just pull those open now. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
Cool. So, yeah, it was a great honor to share, and there was a lot that we covered. But the ultimate answer to the question is like, how do I improve my company closing ratio? And before we talk about the three levers and how to do that, I just want to kind of lay the groundwork and just help us see the impact of starting to know our closing ratio and the effects of not knowing our closing ratio.
Yeah.
So, and I'll just kind of share real quick. If anybody does not know me, I'm a former pro baseball player, got into the sales career after my parents were in the construction industry and baseball was over. So I had that athlete background and discipline and focus and personal and professional growth. Just love to bring that energy into the industry. But I saw that my parents didn't have the business acumen. They didn't make it. Their business suffered. And then I met a large commercial roofing contractor, a very innovative company who's focused on sales a decade ago. And I saw them kind of climb a golden revenue mountain. Every year was growth. And it was because of their focus on really committing to becoming a sales organization. And so when I saw the polarity and the difference between a mom and pop versus a sales organization, I said, wow, what is the difference here? I need to do something about this because this is really information for me, and the industry needs it. So I've been devoting my career to truly transforming companies that are in the trades who are not necessarily sales oriented, don't know how to go about building a sales team, don't have a sales process, don't know how to recruit, train, hold people accountable. And they just aren't really that, sophisticated with their sales efforts and when they do that, things really change. So I'm just going to talk about that. I've also been married 10 years. I have 4 children, and my wife, her dream was to move to Hawaii, and was able to get us there a year and a half ago, and we're still living there, and so we're loving it. So I just want to talk about the few different business models. If you're, let's just say, in roofing, you may be in the insurance restoration game, and so if your closing ratio is a 20% closing ratio, there's a lot more energy that it takes in order to land. Let's say you have a target of growing to $10 million in sales. So let's just pretend that you have a closing ratio of 20%. You have to knock 100 doors, do 20 inspections, you get 4 contracts. With an average deal of 20K and a goal of 10 million, you need to knock on 12,500 doors. Think about all the recruiting, the time, the energy, the training, the resources to get those reps on, to keep them at that pace consistently, not up and down. At a 20% closing ratio, you're really going to have to work twice as hard than having a 40% closing ratio. And so most companies that I know don't really have a true grip of what their closing ratio is. And when you don't know that, you don't have somebody looking at that, caring about that, obsessing about that, it becomes hard to grow with predictability. And I think that the biggest fear that I think most of us have is, do I have enough money and enough work coming in to keep my crews busy that I've invested time and money and resources in, my team, my salaried employees, the people that I care about, the things that I want to do with my business. You might be tossing and turning because you can't forecast the future. And when you're at a small scale and you're the owner and you make all the sales, you have a feel. But what about when you have a sales team and you want to grow people, you want to hold them accountable? You have to know your closing ratio. And that's just a fundamental fact. And it sounds so elementary and basic, but 7 out of 10 of you are doing a poor job. And because of that, the people who are doing a great job are going to be more competitive than you. So how we want to just be able to move to, how do we get to that 40%? Think about it. You'll knock half the doors if you close at twice the rate. So we'll talk about
a lot of doors. I have to say, that's a lot of doors.
A lot of doors. So that's if you're in that business model. This doesn't apply to everybody. If you're in the retail game, you grow your business differently through organic, word of mouth, People see your trucks, and you also pay ads. You pay Google for pay-per-click. You maybe run Facebook ads. You maybe run YouTube ads. You maybe run ads in the different, categories of magazines and associations, and you're paying money to drive business. And if you pay 100 leads, you get 20 scheduled appointments and 15 sit/demos, and you get 3 sales. That's a 20% closing ratio, right? 3 sales out of 15. Now, what if you got 6 sales instead of 3 out of 15? Your cost per sale cuts in half. I mean, if you can pay for $667, this is just an example, to get 1 sale, that's amazing. At a $20,000 average deal size, this could be 10. Okay, I'm just using numbers here. You would need, instead of $667,000 of marketing spend to get to 10 million, you'd be only having to get it at 333,000. That's a big difference. I mean, 300 grand is a massive. What can you do with $300,000? You buy a brand new few things, right? You maybe get more software. You'd be able to have a new salary employees. You'd be able to have a better sales leader. You'd be able to put a production. You'd be able to do so much with $300,000 a year. And the reality is all you're doing is by having a better sales, more effective sales process or sales conversion mechanism. It is very, very powerful. That's just the ad spend, not to mention the time not being wasted by chasing leads that were bad leads, right? So there's a lot of opportunity just in knowing your closing ratio and saying, what would life feel and be like if I can close 40 instead of 20? Now let's look at the commercial side. This is another one. Let's say you want to get to $10 million in sales, and you have like seasoned sales estimators who know your trade, and they're putting up $2 million a year. That's like most owners, when they wear every hat, could do 2 to 4 million by themselves, and then eventually you have seasoned, estimators that could do 2 million. Let's just say you're paying them 2 million, 75K a year, and we could even pay more on the higher level if you actually committed to salespeople instead of sales estimators on the price of what you pay them. But let's just say bottom line, you want to get there, and you have to bid $50 million, average bid of $100,000. Okay, at 20%, you're looking at 375K. If you bid half of that, because you have a 40% closing ratio, not even bidding as much, but the same deal size, your payroll is half that, right? So just in payroll, not to mention time wasted and better clients and the wrong clients you don't deal with anymore. That's all up there for debate of what else we can realize on ROI. But another illustration, you can have a $4 million producer, and that person's closing doubly as effectively. So it's very, very powerful. And if you want to get to 30 million, you start to look at the numbers. You're well over $1 million in payroll just to have the staff to estimate and sell and generate that much work in order to get that. What would you do with another $500,000, right? $500,000 is so, when you just look at the costs, every time you save money, it's like making a sale, right? And so I just want to kind of lay the groundwork. Like, what's your closing ratio? Do you know it? Do you know it? You need to know your closing ratio. If you don't know it, get a grip on it. And the way I like to measure closing ratio is concluded deals that were concluded. What does that mean? If I bid 10 jobs and I found out the answer to all 10, 3 that came in my favor and 7 that I didn't, now I have a 30% closing ratio. But if you bid 10 jobs, 5 were concluded, 2 went in your favor. That's 2 out of 5, right? So two sales divided by 5 concluded was a 40% closing ratio, because guess what? There's 5 more that the jury's still out on. We could follow up, we could find out what happened. And so your closing ratio needs to be measured. It's hard to do in a spreadsheet. You need to be doing it in a CRM. And CRMs if you don't have a CRM that tracks your closing ratio, you're in trouble. And you should know your closing ratio by residential, by retail, commercial, insurance, whatever your business models are, break it down. Because when you're able to double click on any of those areas, you can find out the real reason. You think that you're bidding a lot of work and it's good, but it's maybe a reflection that you have a bad sales process or your salesperson isn't really doing a great job. When you want to inspect what you expect. If you expect them to have a high closing ratio, inspect everything they're doing. And I'm telling you, your people will thrive under an accountable environment where they're not left to their own devices to be successful. And when you start to pay attention, it really changes the game. So that's kind of the ground.
So question for you, Ryan. So let's say I'm a contractor and I know that my closing ratio, I'm only closing back, 3 sales, but I want to go, I need to figure out how to make it 6, like you were showing on that other slide. What are the things, what are the pitfalls? What are contractors doing that are screwing it up? I guess that they're changing. What is it that they need to change if I need to go from 3 to 6?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. I know we have a bunch of other things to cover, and I could talk about this for hours and hours. But I would just ask the question, like, am I trying to sell somebody who's not really a great fit for us? That's not willing to let us be their partner. It depends if it's residential, if it's commercial. There's a few different variables. But ask the question, am I doing a good job qualifying? And you may say, well, I don't even have a sales process that gives me the power and the permission to even know how to qualify. I mean, I just think that they have a building, they want some help, and I'm just going to tell them how I can help. But you find that your closing ratio is low because they're shopping you out, they're looking at other people. There's just a lot of problems in your approach. I like to call it spray and pray, bid and beg, quote and hope, bid it and forget it. Like those 4 are that's what most people do because they have too many other obligations. And so what they do is they just do what they can, shoot an email, hope for the best. They don't follow up. So they're just doing so few things right. And then if they just added, it's like a spoke of the wheel. If they just added the right elements of great salesmanship, whether it's sales process, the right type of salesperson, the sales approach, the follow-up game, the decision makers, everything that goes into that, I'm telling you, it is a phenomenal improvement when you start to make those. So there could be a lot of things. I could probably inspect that and figure it out if we talked, but I'm going to go over those in more detail over the next several sessions here with you, Jill, and
I love it.
A deeper dive.
Ryan, that's such great information. And I'm so excited to share this with contractors so they can really dive in and figure out what their closing ratio is. And I know we've got lots more to cover because we've got a whole series of great videos like this we're going to do. But thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you spending the time with us and your insight. If anybody has any questions for Ryan, how do they get a hold of you? What's your website?
Yeah, they can go to salestransformationgroup.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can find me at Ryan Groth. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram. My email is rgroth@salestransformationgroup.com. And you guys are welcome to contact me. And my cell phone number is 808-463-0974. That's 808-463-0974 if you want to connect. And I know in the next couple of ones we're going to talk about is, just devoting your focus on salespeople, sales process, and then sales technology. I'm going to cover those in the next session. So we take a deep dive and hopefully you guys can have some clarity.
Fabulous. So if you need to reach us, the website is roofingcontractor.com, wconline.com. And while you're there, make sure you sign up for our free e-newsletters. Make sure you also check out our new e-magazine. The platform is amazing. We had an incredible article on Ryan here before Best of Success. You'll have to check that out. But bottom line, please stay safe and healthy, and we look forward to talking to you next time.
Hey!